All right, great turnout. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight for this special webinar. It's a youth forum. With everything that's going on in the world today, and especially COVID, it's interesting to see how clubs are starting up their youth programs. What is the impact of the COVID recommendations and requirements on different programs? So we've brought in 4 people this evening that are going to talk to us about how they're running their programs, so that it might give you some ideas. And at the same time, once we open things up, you may be able to provide us with some ideas as well. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lee Toner. Lee is not going to do a presentation this evening, but he is on board to answer any questions from a medical perspective that any of you might have. Dr. Toner has a specialty in sport medicine. He's an associate professor with the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. He's an emergency physician at Health Science North in Sudbury. So Lee is very well qualified to help us from the medical aspect of it. Our first presenter tonight is Kevin Campbell. Kevin is originally from Kapuskasing. Am I saying that correctly? No, I know, it's really Kapuskasing. I just like saying it the other way. He's played competitively. He made it to the provincial or nationals, in 1995 in Regina, Saskatchewan as a vice. He has curled since he was 5 years of age, and lately he's been working with the Little Rocks at the Dixie Curling Club and has worked very hard for the past many years establishing that program. So Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you first. So let me pass you the presenter role. Oops, I missed. So take it away, please, Kevin. You're the boss. Uh-oh. Kevin, you might be muted. I didn't mute you, so you might have to unmute yourself, perhaps. It was working before. Kevin, can you hear me? We've lost Kevin. Oh, because we can't hear you, Kevin. And I have not I haven't muted anyone. I've just asked people to mute themselves. So, okay. We could see your screen, Kevin. That's why I'm wondering if, let me try passing the presenter role again. Okay. We still can't hear you. Love technology. Kevin, would you consider phoning in on one of the numbers that's on the invitation and keep your screen up? And we'll try it that way. Okay, what I'm going to do, good idea, Kevin, is we are going to move to, I'm going to reclaim the presenter role, and we're going to move to our next presenter. Abby Darnley is the Director of Operations for Rock Solid Productions. The focus of Rock Solid Productions is growing the sport of curling. So Abby has taught curling to new and young curlers in Guyana, Mexico, US, and all over Canada. She started an elementary cross-country school run for the local school board 5 years ago, and about 1,000 students participate each year. She's also been called by her family and friends as the perpetual optimist. Abby has been very, very involved in the Little Rock program and in Eggs of Canada, Rocks and Rings. Sorry, Abby. So I'm going to pass the presenter role to you, Abby, and we should now be able to see your screen and hear you, hopefully.
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, let me just see if I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I did a run through with Sean to make sure this is all going to work. And there we go.
Perfect.
You can see it?
Mm-hmm.
Someone wants to enter the meeting?
Yep, you can allow that. Yes, please.
Just making sure. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a few slides. You guys can see them okay?
Yes, yeah, it's coming through great.
Okay, perfect. So yes, I run the youth program at Stroud Curling Club, which is just near Barrie, so just not far from Toronto. Yeah, so we are planning on opening, but I would like to start by saying that our plan when we discussed it in the summer was our goal was to open. However, at any point, if it didn't work, it doesn't open. Like everything right now, our plan's to open, but things are changing on a regular basis, and if we can't open, then we won't, and that'll be the case. So here's our plan. So the first thing of our plan that we did was we started communication with all of our current participants in August. We told them we're planning to open. Here is the situation. We had a confirmed cancellation plan. So, I mean, our cost for the club is very low. So for the most part, parents, even if we did shut down, probably aren't looking for a refund. But we laid it out that if we did more than 4 weeks, there was no refund under any situation. So they should know that ahead of time. We also said that masks were mandatory for all the kids to wear on the ice, and that was just going to be the way it is. If their child couldn't wear a mask for this season, then we didn't have a program for them because we didn't want to work around that. And our club had a bunch of rules and regulations, such as the locker rooms were closed and that sort of stuff. So all the club rules and regulations had to apply, and the parents had to sign off that they knew what those were and all that sort of stuff. We also said that each of the curlers had to have their own broom. We discussed as a team and decided that because curling is a relatively inexpensive sport, that kids having to purchase their own broom was not going to be the end of the world. Kids have to have their own hockey stick to play hockey. Kids have to have their own soccer cleats for soccer. And for this year, we're saying you had to have your own broom. And we would connect kids, possible if we could, to borrow if they really couldn't get one. But that was going to be our goal. Our time slot's an hour and a half normally. So we run a 1.5 hour program. We were cutting that in half. So we were running 2 time slots. 45 minutes each time slot, and we were adding 15 minutes between the time slots so that we could restrict the number of kids that were on the ice at one time. And it also allowed us time to clean and sanitize all the main touch surfaces before the next group of kids came in. think I skipped, sorry. The next thing we had to do was, do we have enough instructors or coaches to go on the ice? We had to make sure that of the people that came back to coach and volunteer, we had enough to go on the ice. Because obviously, I'm not a one-man show out there. We depend, as I'm sure all of your youth programs do, we depend heavily on parents to help out, like most youth sports programs. So we needed to make sure we had that prior to running. And like I said, we're changing weekly. Our team of staff and instructors, and I say staff, none of us are paid. Our team of instructors are working together as things change. Specific for us, we're not allowing any parents or adults to watch. This is now a drop-off program. And we've added 15 minutes between the groups to allow for cleaning. We have enough youth little rocks on all 5 of our sheets. And so we're going to assign the kids 2 rocks, and we're having a sticker with their name on it, and those will be their 2 rocks week after week. And so they'll only share with potentially one other person, or potentially that would be their rock. We can do that for youth because we are the only ones that use those rocks. So that being said, it might not be red versus blue, because when we go to keep score, it'll be, okay, these 3 on the team, whose of their rocks is closest to the center? And that's how we're going to run that. As I mentioned, we are doing cleaning between the 2 draws. So all the rocks will be wiped down and cleaned, and any of the main touch surfaces will also be cleaned. We're also having a shoe bench with mats actually outside. So I don't know if anyone's been to Stroud, but it's a huge staircase up. So we are having a bench with mats for any parents who need to help their kids put their shoes on before they come into the club. Kind of like if you go to like an outdoor skating rink and they have a bench with mats to put your skates on, we're going to do the same thing so that any kids that do need help, their parents can do so before they come into the building, and keep those clean. And those mats are going to be our youth program mats, so we're keeping them, we'll roll them up at the end of the day and clean them off and keep them for us. It's not something the club's doing, obviously, for all the members there. I think one of the key things I wanted to talk about was why we're running our youth program, and the discussion that the team of coaches I had is that we want to keep kids engaged in the sports, and we don't want to lose them. And my fear, I love sports as a whole, and my friends will tell you that I will encourage kids to play any sport, if not all sports possible. But I think if kids walk away from the sport, even for a year, because of reasons they can't control, it's going to be harder for us to get some of them to come back. And we want to try to hang on to as many of the youth we have and keep them engaged in the sport so they do come back or they stay with us through this year. And we also thought it might be an opportunity, because not all sports can run. This is a great opportunity for us to get some new curlers out. I know, like, we are going to allow curlers who haven't curled before to come out onto the ice, but we think it's a great opportunity to try the sport when there's not as many sports running right now, and hopefully get a few new curlers in the long run. So yeah, that is it for me. Anyone have any questions?
You can you can unmute yourself if you have a question, or you can put it in the chat box. Either way. I have a question, but I'll do it at the end. So, how many rocks do you have?
Oh, so
how many rocks?
Yeah, we are a 5-sheet club, so we have a full set, like 16 rocks for each sheet. We have enough rocks to play 5 games at a time. So that's why we're able to. So we have we only have, I think, 55 kids in our program last year. So it's very easy for us to cut our program in half, and it allows about 25 to 30 kids on the ice at a time.
Okay, and are all 5 sheets? Has your experience been that all 5 sheets are full? There's a question about how many athletes do you have?
Yeah, so we have 55. Last year we had 55. Our registration is definitely down this year. I think the last time I checked, now we're not starting, so we did do a delayed start. We would normally start next week. However, we're starting November 1st because we wanted to wait and see after Thanksgiving being a busy time for people getting together, what it would look like in our area for cases and what the risk is. So we have, we anticipate we're going to only have about 20, maybe 25 kids on the ice if it's absolute max at the time.
Okay. And how many sessions per week?
So we only run once a week right now with our Little Rock program. So it kids 6 to 12.
Okay. And what training do you provide for instructors, coaches, and volunteers?
So, well, this year we were hoping to provide them with a club coaches thing, but some of our coaches aren't coming back. To be honest, our program, since I've taken over, we've been extremely lucky, and a lot of the coaches happen to be ex-competitive players in the area. So that's really helped, and I would say that in terms of skill and technique, I happen to be one of the worst coaches on the ice. I bring to the program, I'd like to tell them I bring to the program fun and excitement. They bring all the skills. So, so I'm lucky that way. We have a ton of really experienced growers who happen to have kids in our neighborhood. So we haven't had to do too much training. However, if a coach doesn't have a lot of training, we typically buddy them up with someone who does. So we are lucky enough that we can try and have close to 2 coaches per sheet. And usually myself or someone else who has just a little more experience will have only 1 coach per sheet.
Okay, good. Have you set a minimum youth to adult ratio?
We don't have a set number, but usually I'll have 8 to 10 coaches on the ice at a time for our
55 kids. Okay.
And however, the way our program kind of works is it's extremely rare we get 55 kids at a time.
Right.
And for this season, we won't be a maximum of 30 kids that can be out there at a time.
Okay, so max 30 on the ice. Okay, good. You have a drop and go. What do you do if an athlete is hurt or wants to get off the ice before their ride is there?
So that's going to be an excellent question. We talked about that. The parents have to give us a cell phone contact of where they're going to be or whatever while they're here, and the parents are signing off that if something happens, we're going to do our due diligence to get a hold of them. Otherwise, they're just going to stay with one of our coaches. So we haven't, knock on wood, we have not had any serious injuries or issues. And a lot of the parents have said they're probably just going to hang out in the parking lot because there's not a lot of places that they can go for the short period of time of where we're located. But we're going to do our due diligence to get a hold of the parents as quickly as possible. And I mean, it's only a 45-minute session, and the parents have to be back. So it shouldn't be a long wait if something were to happen. Yeah, and it's always, there's a lot of trust there too that parents are going to be back on time, right? That was going to be my question is. Yeah, so we're actually making them sign a letter. Well, first of all, they have to confirm their child has no symptoms before they are dropped off, and confirm that this is the end time that we're picking them up, and all that sort of stuff. Okay. I mean, we're not that small of a town, but we're small enough to know that we know most of the parents that are dropping off at this point. And you get pretty familiar with them. So I'm pretty confident in the program. But yes, there is a risk for sure that someone doesn't get back in time. Okay. Could you let Lee back in, please? Done. Okay. Another question, do you have a kind of a target ratio for coach to athlete? We don't. We've never have before. In this case, we're keeping it 6 for COVID reasons. We're keeping it maximum of 6 kids per sheet, allowing us to play the 3-on-3. Okay. Game. So that's what we're going to do for the COVID. However, we are normally we wouldn't have a set maximum. It would really depend on kind of who comes out each week, and we kind of shuffle the groups around to make it fit best for what we're doing that week.
Okay. So I guess my perspective always is that having 2 volunteers per sheet is always ideal, one at the home end and one at the away end, right?
That's exactly how I try to do it.
Okay.
As well. And sometimes if we only have what I say is 1.5, we have the skips, kind of like an instructor between the 2 skips, kind of helping out those. Mm-hmm. One instructor helping out of the hacks. So that's typically, and again, we're pretty lucky with the number of volunteers we have. So we typically have a minimum of 8 coaches on the ice. A few of our coaches are grandparents, so they've said they're not coming back just because the risk is higher. So we know we're short, but we are also know we're limiting the number of kids this year, so that's fine.
How do you plan to coach new curlers? We find they need a lot of hands-on for adjustments.
Yeah, so our program, we don't actually do a ton of hands-on, just the way I typically teach is more kind of watch and learn sort of thing. It's how we are. So we won't be doing any hands-on. And we've, that's all players to be wearing gloves. And all of our coaches will be as well, gloves or mitts. So we're okay with that. We just haven't, that's not how we've taught in the past. As they get older and they may be more comfortable, it might change. But for right now, our youth program is more just kind of watch me or watch the instructor more, and then try and duplicate it. And then we'll just critique and tell them where to move their leg a little bit this way or that way, and demonstrate maybe what they were doing versus what we want them to do. Okay.
What about concussion and other health and safety? Has that been addressed at all? Do you have your coaches sign off on Roland's Law, etc.?
Yeah, they do, and actually all the parents have to sign off on it as well.
Okay.
So that's our club policy. So before any of the kids can actually go on the ice, the parents have to sign all the paperwork and stuff, and Roland's Law is like a huge binder of stuff they have to read through and sign off of prior to getting there. So that's all going to be digitally emailed to them.
Okay, great. Is your program entirely on ice, or do you have off-ice programming as well?
So most of our program is on ice. We do warm-ups. We usually do warm-ups in the lounge, and we usually do like not necessarily a fun fact, but something fun or different, or kind of question the kids a bit before we go on the ice. And then we kind of pump up the music and blast it out, and away we go. But this year it'll all be on the ice. No one will be in the lounge. The lounge will be more kind of when you walk through to get to the ice, and then we get going. But again, our program is cut down to 45 minutes, and so it's going to be a tight time to get through everything, but it'll work.
Okay. So it is, okay, good. Do you have session training plans for guides for coaches?
So I plan out all the sessions, the weekly sessions, and typically my team is fine with that. None of them wanted that role. So generally I have an 8 to 10 week sessions planned out, and then we have a lot of theme days like Olympics Day, or we'll have Hot Shots Day or different stuff. So for the most part, I plan out all the lessons and each sheet of ice, and I'll tell the coaches ahead of time what we're doing and here's how you're going to do it. And that's generally how we will run the program. And it allows, that way if a coach isn't coming, we don't have to worry about anything. I usually print the lessons out and it's in a binder, and if I'm not there, one of the other coaches can take it over and go, okay, here's what we're doing. Typically starts with a review of something we did last week, and it has the fun activities this week. This year it'll be very different because we usually had an hour and a half, but obviously we're going to have to cram a bunch of stuff into a short period of time. So our program sessions are going to look very different.
Okay, flexibility, eh?
Yeah.
Are you doing contact tracing records?
We are, and I don't know, I'm not familiar with that as much. We're doing it based on exactly what the club requirements are. So again, all the parents of our club have to read the rules and regulations that are set out. And I have to fill out something before each session of who comes, whatever. So that's why each week they'll actually have paperwork done prior to them coming in and signing off.
Okay. I see kids with helmets. Has Curl Canada provided a certified helmet for curling use? I'll answer that one, James. Not that I'm aware of. There still is, there's lots out there, but there has been no one helmet that is being promoted or approved for use for curling. There was another question before I get to Larry's. Has the club's plan, COVID plan, return to play plan been approved by the local health unit?
You know, I believe they have, but I'm not 100% sure on that. To be perfectly honest, I'm not even a member at this curling club. I just volunteer to run their youth program. So,
okay.
I work with their board of directors, and I've talked with the president and the person running the COVID section, and they have like an hour-long video that everybody has to watch, and they have done a huge amount of things, and I believe it's been run through the health firm, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. All right. How are you dealing with using training aids?
We're not this year. We normally do, but that's why we said we're just going to try to train them with their brooms. We usually have all of the kids use stabilizers and a bunch of other stuff, but this year we have said, you know what, for 1 year they can learn on a broom. We all learned on a broom, and we're still curling, so we're going to do it.
Okay, good. Okay. What ages are your athletes, and how many years is your program?
So our kids can go between the ages of 6 to, well, you normally do 6 to 11. This year we're taking some 12-year-olds because we had a bunch of kids kind of go up to our juniors who weren't quite ready yet. And so a few parents have asked if they could stay an extra year in our program, and then we would accommodate with it. And I always say yes, we'll make it work. So we're going to go 6 to 12 this year.
Okay, great. Do you use step-on sliders or tape on the delivery foot?
We use step-on sliders, and we have a bunch of kids who will, who are getting the curling shoes now.
Okay. Yes, tape is always scary because then when it comes to brushing, we're encouraging 2 grippers. So tape is always kind of messy.
Yeah, we don't use tape at all. None of our kids have tape.
Good. Do you have any U15 or U18 curlers that you're working with at the moment?
So we have a lot at the club, but I don't work with any of them. They run after us. Yeah, they run. So our Little Rock program runs in the mornings, and they run in the afternoon. And they are planning on running, but I don't know what their I don't know anything about their plan or program.
Okay, good. All right. Are you loaning step-on sliders for the season? Otherwise, are they touching them with their gloves after their delivery?
That is the plan right now, is that they would be using them with their gloves. And then after, we have enough right now that we have 2 to 3 sliders per sheet. So it could be very low contact with the maximum 6 curlers on their sheet. And then they'll all be sanitized prior to the next group coming out. Okay.
I can tell you that for the person that asked that question, the Kenora Curling Club bought slip-on sliders. We included the cost of a slip-on slider in our registration fee, and then we put the kids' names on those sliders. So when they come to check in, they get their slider with their name on it, and away they go. And then when they come off the ice at the end of the game, they bring their slider in. One thing that we might have to look at this season, is isolating those sliders or cleaning them, one of the two. Another question here, what is the cost per athlete for your program?
I'm embarrassed to say, because I've fought with the club of how cheap it is, and I think we should bring it up. But it's $75 for the year, and that's after I debated with them to bring it up from $60.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I'm embarrassed to say. I know. We're giving it away. I do not. If anyone's talking about this thing, I recommend you're nothing less than 150. I think even then, it's still giving it away.
Yeah. Do you have access to the street curling program? And if so, how do you integrate it into your program?
Street curling or floor curl? I do have access to that. However, I don't.
You better have.
Really integrated into the on ice program that we run. I shouldn't say that. I have. It probably won't this year. We have in the past because we've had 55 kids and we run like family days. We can't have 55 kids all bring their family and go on the ice. So sometimes we run. There's a community hall that's attached to ours, so we run half on the ice and half of them are in the recreation center, still competing curling. They have games in there, and then the game transfers it onto the ice, and we rotate through. So I have in the past done it, but it is unlikely that we will this year. Yeah, but our club actually owns their own set that they did not get through me. I found out afterwards that they ordered it. So that they get no benefit. They have no benefits of me running their youth program.
No. How many weeks are you running your program for? Is it until April?
We usually go until about March break.
Oh, yeah. So, that's what many clubs do, eh? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Comment here, Almira's is $100, which is still very reasonable.
Still very reasonable, I agree. I would love mine to be $100.
I think Kenora's is 120. Karen can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 120, and that includes the slider. And if you have a slider from the previous year, then your fee is reduced by the cost of the slider. Okay, Kevin, can you just unmute yourself or talk? So I think, I don't think there are any other questions. Abby, thank you so much. That was very informative, and there were lots of good questions, so this is great. So I am going to reclaim the presenter role. Kevin, can you say something and let me hear? If we can hear you now, then I can pull your slides up on my screen and you can speak to the slides.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, we can hear you. Okay. So
yeah, I'm sorry, my headset stopped working for some reason.
Oh,
I could hear you, which made it bizarre that I couldn't speak, but here we go.
Okay. So do you want to try presenting again?
Sure.
Okay.
And Abby did a really great job, so I should be able to just breeze through this presentation here.
Okay, and we can see.
You didn't get to go first.
So we can hear you. I think we're looking at your screen now, Kevin.
Yep. Okay, I'm just sharing it here. Okay, here we go. You can see my screen now, I think.
Yes. Yep, awesome.
Okay, excellent. So I'll just say a few things about the Dixie Curling Club in Mississauga. First of all, about the program, we have ages 6 to 12, just like Stroud. Our program is typically 2 hours on Sunday afternoons, starting at 11:45 and ending about 1:30 in the afternoon. We've had 20 to 30 participants normally. Sometimes, some years we've been as high as 40 or so. Typically, a session for us involves a warm-up at the beginning. Then everyone goes on the ice. We do drills for about half an hour. And after the first hour of the program, we all come in, have a snack and a drink for 10 minutes or so, and then head back on the ice with sheet assignments and play 2-on games. So obviously some of those components won't be able to happen anymore. We also have an annual Bonspiel in February and something called Junior Olympics that I heard it sounds like happens at Stroud as well. So kids come in the morning, they each get placed on a team or a country. they wear a cap for that country, and they compete for the day. And at the end of the day, we have medals and prizes, and usually we try to get an ex-Olympian talk to the kids at the end of the day. So it's very unique and very fun. So I guess the preamble here is with COVID-19 happening, a few of the coaches got together in the summertime and just tried to determine if the adults are going to start curling in October or November, how do we make sure that the kids have an opportunity to curl as well? And really, we want to keep the kids active, but also keep the families healthy and keep the kids healthy as well. So I think Abby did a really good job explaining some of the things we need to consider. So for our restart plan, obviously we have the guidelines from the OCA, and Dixie Curling Club has guidelines as well that we need to follow. But we thought about doing is having a soft start. So Dixie is a 6-sheet curling club, and we thought to try things out and make sure we could safely have kids curl, we would try to have 12 kids come to a soft start for a week or two, just to see how it works, inviting the older curlers, the ones who've maybe curled for 2 or 3 years, and not having any new curlers either. And so we would have the kids come in. I think Dixie has some designated seating in the lounge for people to just change into the curling shoes, and a procedure to sit in a certain part of the lounge, and whoever's closest to the door goes on the ice at the furthest from the door, and so on and so forth. So with our 2 sheets, though, because we wouldn't do any warm-ups and stretching from the lounge, maybe we would have the 12 kids or the 18 kids, however many we had, line up across the sideboards, maybe 2 to 4 meters away from each other, depending on how much room we had, and do a bit of a warm-up there, and do the curling stretch or the hack stretch from the boards as well, just to get things started. And they can also sweep in place to get warmed up that way too. So that's what we thought for the warm-up at the beginning. We have some little rocks at the club, but we thought we would just use the regular rocks, so we wouldn't have to worry about cleaning another set of rocks. And also the little rocks aren't really labeled with numbers and sheet numbers as well, so it'd be harder to keep everyone to their own stones. But I like the idea that Stroud had as well. So we would forego the drills and get right into playing 3 versus 3 games. I know that I think it's the OCC has in their guideline how we can play 4 versus 4 games, but I think it's a bit complicated for kids. And also the drills are normally when the kids come together and watch a lesson or an activity. So we could probably do drills if it was more of a one-on-one basis, or maybe two kids and 1 coach. But to have a group and a coach would be really difficult, I think, to keep everybody safe and socially distanced. And with the soft start, we would have a game every second sheet, whether we had 2 sheets and 12 kids or 3 sheets and 18 kids, and also making sure we had at least 1 coach per sheet, just to make sure everything is orderly and everyone knows where to go at all times. One thing we saw, and I think it's the same with Stroud, that in terms of masks, everyone needs to wear masks, but they're allowed to remove them when they're sweeping. And we thought for kids, it'd be best just to maybe restrict their sweeping if they didn't feel comfortable sweeping with a mask. But I wouldn't really feel comfortable with kids taking their masks on and off and trusting that they would keep them on when needed. And obviously, during the break, there would be no snacks. So a few of the challenges that we were thinking about, and it sounds like Stroud did a good job addressing some of these. Do we allow one parent to stay and watch, or do they just drop off the kids and pick them up at the end of the session? So we weren't necessarily sold on what to do there yet. How to decide if we expand to more curlers or younger curlers or even new curlers. If the soft start went well for the first week or two and we felt like we could have keep everybody safe and all that, what would be the decision factors for us to invite and grow to a larger number? Would we reintroduce drills, and are there certain drills we could do that would ensure the social distancing and ensure that everybody would keep apart? And also, because we're talking about running with fewer members, doing a soft start with only 12 players or 18 players, would the club accept to run a program with fewer members and lesser revenues to pay for staff time, et cetera? So that's another question we had, and more for the club maybe. So that's what we were thinking about at the Dixie Curling Club. And actually, we just found out last week that the club will be closed until January at the earliest. So it gives us a little bit more time to get organized, and hopefully we do have an opportunity, if COVID numbers go back to reasonable levels, to try our plan. Is someone else trying to speak? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. With my luck and telecommunication tonight, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that would be cruel of us to let you keep talking after the first slide.
Pardon me?
That would be cruel of us to let you keep talking after the first slide.
Right.
I have a question for you, Kevin.
Yes.
I'm from the Peterborough Curling Club. At Dixie, you were saying about paid staff. So you have a paid staff person that runs your program?
No. So I was talking more about the ice technician, and I think there's a volunteer or a paid member who looks after the facility or the lounge while there's people at the club. So all of our coaches are volunteers. None of us are paid.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it was more for the lights and everything, electricity for the club in order to accommodate the program.
Can you hear me now, Kevin?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, good. I think it was on mute and I didn't know it. Has your club already installed ice, or have they already installed ice before the decision was made?
Yeah, no, I don't believe they have installed ice yet.
Okay. The kids' family are likely concerned for the first day back. What do you think the first day back should look like?
At the club, yeah, that's a great question. And that's also why we were thinking about having a soft start with only 12 kids and the more mature kids, just to make sure that we can try this out with a smaller group that we feel more comfortable with. What do we think it should look like? I think hopefully, like I explained, and having everybody come at a specific time. I mean, I've heard a lot. If someone's going to show up late, the door will be locked, and just to keep everybody organized. But yeah, I think it would look as I talked this through the slides, and obviously there's going to be waivers and everything else to handle. And I've seen a lot of activities, for example, handle the waivers online or through email instead of having a table with people to sign waivers there and then. So I think that's a logistical thing that will have to be completed before the first day and before anybody steps into the club.
Okay, that's great. Any more questions?
Yeah, Kevin, I didn't catch, what did you guys charge for your program for curling?
Yeah, so I'm the person from the GTA, so it's $200 for the season. It's 23 weeks, and it's also, like I mentioned, 1.5 to 2 hour time slot too. So the club is very generous with the Little Rock program. So that's been fantastic.
Yeah, it is a very good price.
How many volunteers do you have? How many off-ice volunteers do you plan on having?
How many off-ice volunteers?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, typically we're all on-ice volunteers, and we've been fortunate that a lot of the U19 or U15 curlers volunteer as well. So we have almost as many of them as we do adults. And fortunately, our adults have been around for 5+ years at the club. So we have a very, I guess, a very seasoned coaching crew who've even stayed with the Little Rock program even after their kids have moved up to other levels. So we've been really spoiled with the coaches and also the juniors who've been helping out. And usually we match up an adult and a junior on each sheet of ice.
Okay. Off-ice volunteers, though, might be a benefit this year, just to keep things moving along and ensure maybe that extra cleaning goes on off the ice after the kids are on the ice, and then again when they come off the ice, to ensure that cleaning takes place afterwards too. So something to consider.
Yeah, that's a great point. So maybe we don't allow all parents to come, but maybe we assign a couple parents to do those tasks. So that's a great suggestion.
Good. Okay. Are you utilizing Rule of 2 for things like bathroom runs?
Yeah, that's a great question. We haven't considered that yet, but that might be a good idea, or at least to have a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I was going to say have a coach go with them and just wait outside, but that means one less coach on the ice. So that's maybe where the volunteers would come into play.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. And then the volunteer wouldn't have to go into the washroom with the little rocker, but they could stand outside and just make sure that the child would wash their hands or provide hand sanitizer or whatever on the way out as they're going back out onto the sheet. Good point.
Yeah, great question.
Okay. I think I'm not seeing any more questions. So thank you very much, Kevin. That was very informative. The more information we have, the better. So that was excellent. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize for the microphone speaker issue.
Oh, technology is wonderful when it works. See? No, you did great. You did great. Okay, our next presenter is Laura Johnston. Laura is now the curling professional at the North Bay Granite Curling Club. Laura's been curling since she was 5. She's attended Algonquin College taking law and Ottawa U for business administration. She worked in real estate for 8 years before establishing a business partnership in JAM contracting. So Laura is, she's taken over at the North Bay Granite from Bobby Ray, who is now the executive director for NOCA. So welcome, Laura. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Okay, I'm going to pass the presenter role to you.
Okay.
And great. Oh, that's Dixie, but that's okay. When you pull up your presentation.
Slide now?
Not yet.
Okay.
You might have to go up to the top to the little TV screen in a bubble and say share my screen. There we go.
All right. How about now?
Yes. Yep, we got it now.
Okay, great. First off, I just want to thank you, Andrea and Sean, for this initiative in creating our Return to Play and youth programs. It's a wonderful opportunity for volunteers and coaches to have a platform to reach out, to bounce ideas and strategies. I've got all kinds of notes that I've been writing down after hearing Abby and Kevin speak, which is wonderful. We've been busy at the North Bay Granite. Just a quick overview of what our club offers for our juniors. We've divided our season into 3 trimesters of 7 weeks. We have a fall, winter, and spring. We offer a junior learn to curl. This is when people are coming in brand new, never tried it, which works really well for kind of a bridging program into our junior program. We also have new themes every week. This year, I'm going to be putting an emphasis on our curling etiquette. Our junior program, it runs the full season from October to March. I know there were some questions about pricing. Our pricing is around the $200 mark, but they do have a lesson and a league play every week, so they're on the ice twice a week. We've divided our season this year into a U18 and a U12 for our groups. Previously, we had it as a U18, a U14, and a U10 as well. However, with allotting adequate sanitization time between our groups, we required that change. Contact tracing is a really high priority on my list. As in previous seasons, I'm sure other coaches can relate. Junior programs can be really busy and almost hectic at times. So this season, my goal is to try and slow things down a little, but while still maintaining an exciting energy. We will be recording attendance, and as of today, our enrollment, we will be allowing 1 parent or spectator to attend in our lounge, but this is after them signing in on our attendance sheet for our contact tracing. We do have new directional flow and seating. Our building has adapted to COVID protocol. We have no use of our lockers. We have no seating at our glass front for viewing the ice, but we all will adapt, I know. Our ice maker, Bruno Bin, and his team have been working diligently with adding several courtesy marks onto our ice this season. I'm now going to try and work really diligently to help our curlers use them in a proper, safe manner. Another aspect to slowing our juniors down this season will be assigning all curlers who borrow equipment their sliders and brooms every session. We have bins set up for equipment. One is for sanitized, one is for used. We have a COVID record book for sign off on all equipment. Our step-on sliders, our brooms, our rock handles, our scoreboards, and all other high contact points, such as door handles, being thoroughly sanitized. This is something that our Nipissing Parry Sound District Health Board really helped us with going through our return to play plan. Among all of COVID seriousness, we are still searching for some fun and excitement for our youth curlers, though. So something we're working on currently is, in lieu of our annual Junior Bonspiel that we have every December, unfortunately, we won't be able to host that this season. So we've been setting up through our local Canadore College film production, the students there, and we're trying to put on a grand championship final for our December final. We're going to try and do this in both our U12 and U18 leagues, and we're hoping to have the championship game filmed with a commentator and the other curlers seated outside on the ice to cheer and watch. So just kind of something for everyone to look forward to. These are pictures here of, we had a Grand Slam of curling at the North Bay Memorial Gardens last season. I thought these were some great photos. They are our local Little Rockers and junior curlers from the North Bay Granite and some surrounding curling clubs. I think it was pretty awesome for Team Nicholas to take time out of the busy schedules to spend time with some of the local curlers and experience for them. At the Granite, we are adapting every day to new adversities arising. As a coach and a competitive spirit myself and mother, I do have 3 questions that have somewhat been answered, I suppose, by the other clubs, but whether parents and spectators, will they be allowed to watch? So I'm very curious about how Abby, they had a drop-off center, because that was something we talked about in great length. Just the way our facility runs, they have to come up the stairs for people to help with changing their shoes and things like that. And I'm curious too if people are still going to be encouraging removal of the glove to throw the stone. As a competitive curler myself, being especially in our U18 program, we have some very competitive curlers, and it's something that I'm always preaching to them: remove your glove to throw, remove your glove to throw. You need that touch and feel on the stone. So I hear from other clubs, though, that they're recommending to keep your glove on. So that's something we're going to have to figure out. And hearing on the ice, what will work best while wearing a mask. We're fortunate enough at our curling club, we are giving our people the option if they would like to wear them on the ice. However, when in the building, it must be worn while moving around through the building. But on the ice, we were going to give the option for a mask. So I just wanted to take a moment here to say that at the North Bay Granite, we are committed to deliver as much curling as possible in a safe and fun way at the North Bay Granite. And I really appreciate your time and attention, and I hope everyone has a fun and safe curling season this year. And
thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I am going to reclaim the presenter role. Are you okay? Are there any other questions? I have a couple of questions for Dr. Toner. Okay, can you explain your themes a little bit more, Laura?
Yes, certainly. So every week we focus on our lesson as a different theme. Some of them are strategy, some of them are takeout, some of them are draws, and it's developed in our Learn to Curl program, but I mimic it throughout our juniors also. And I develop all of our lesson plans around those themes every week.
Okay. As with adults, we are assigning rocks, and those are the only ones they can touch, U15, U18. So gloves are not encouraged when throwing, and so if a person is throwing their own 2 rocks, then they're not touching anybody else's rocks. Anyway, Dr. Toner, Lee, do you have any thoughts on gloves or no gloves? Maybe Lee left us.
No, I'm still here. Can you hear me, Andrew?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep.
Yeah, I'm in trouble with my mute button, but I got it now.
Okay.
I guess I would emphasize that transmission of COVID has mainly been documented through airborne kind of droplet transmission. So as much as we talk about washing hands and all that stuff, and I believe that's important, I like the assigning the individual rocks, and I would probably go with that as opposed to emphasizing that you throw with a glove with different people's rocks, because you can also touch your face or your skin with the glove that you use on someone else's rock. So I'm a big believer in masks, though. I think COVID's going to be with us for a little bit longer than we want. And studies have looked at masks and transmission in indoor cool environments like the curling club, and transmission is greatly reduced by masks. In fact, it's kind of a risky activity without a mask, I would argue, because the 6 feet moves as you shout, as you yell. The distance is not always enough because, skips can be yelling and projecting their voice. So much like some of the transmission that's occurred in karaoke bars and in gospel choirs, etc., I think we put people at risk. And even just to catch some of those droplets from coming out of the skip's mouth or somebody yelling the weight, etc., it's probably a good idea. So I don't think that I will curl without a mask.
Okay, good. So speaking moistly is greatly the impact is greatly reduced with a mask, so that's good. Are you allowing juniors to curl outside the club in bonspiels? Ooh. Right now, that is against the recommendations, is it not? Or the Emergency Act?
It's against the spirit of the recommendations, I believe. The recommendations are to be implemented at the individual public health units, and their interpretation of what a league is varies a little bit. Northern Ontario, though, is not really allowing any travel within its interpretation of the rules. There are some health units in other areas that are interpreting bond bills as something a little bit different. Certainly Northern Ontario is, the health unit is pretty strict about that.
Okay.
To touch on that at the Granite, we have a few of our top-level junior teams that have decided to play in with the adult league, just to give them a little bit more competition as they're not able to travel and compete in any of their junior slam events. So I don't know if that's something at other clubs that they would allow juniors to play up into a more competitive league for them. That just gives them something a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are teams from Northern Ontario that are traveling outside of Northern Ontario to compete. And do they then have to self-isolate for 14 days when they get back home? You know, it's kind of, because the health unit they talk about out-of-country travel, but they don't really address interprovincial travel as much, unless you're in the Maritimes. Has there been any players to try the brackets under a mask for better airflow? I didn't even know there were brackets to put under a mask for better airflow, so I'm not a good person to answer that question. Anybody aware of anything?
It kind of looks like a muzzle, Andrea.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like a muzzle and you put your mask over, so it lifts the mask away from your face.
Okay, don't show that to my husband and tell him it's a muzzle, okay? Okay. Are there any clubs planning on hosting youth bonspiel?
We are not at the Granite.
Okay. I know that I believe the Youth Challenge Cups are not going ahead this year. So that's one competition or one category of competition that isn't happening. Junior Slam Series has 2 weekends planned already. Oh, that's interesting. That's from Oakville. Travel and competing in events right now is permitted, but it is health unit dependent in Southern Ontario. So that's good information, Perry. Thank you. So I guess, you know, the big thing is to ensure that the health unit is involved in the club's plans, and then that the junior programs or the Little Rock programs are following the club's protocols as well. The girls from one Little Rock program that are coached or from one junior program are all wearing masks. Peterborough Public Health originally said only one league, said it was a rule. They have now agreed curlers may play in more, I think. I think my understanding from what our health unit here or in Kenora has said is that a team may only play in one league, but individuals may play in more than one league. The Northern Health units are recommending no travel outside. If so, then players have to isolate. Yes. Somebody has ordered the brackets, but they haven't arrived yet, and the teachers are using them. In the South, 3 clubs appear to be willing to host competitions. Will hit, draw, tap be a go? That's a good question, Larry. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why it wouldn't, except that it may be all virtual, right? I'll find out. I'll ask Jen about that, and I'll send out an email, or somebody will communicate. So the 3 clubs in the South that are willing to host are the KW Granite, Dundas Valley, and London. Are there any other questions? Oh, okay. Somebody thought OCA said no to hit, draw, tap. And that might be, Mike. I will check. But that would be the OCA. If NOCA, I don't know. I'll check with Jen and see what the response is to that question. Are there any other questions for Laura or for anybody else, or anybody want to open up the mic and talk about what's going on in their club?
Andrea, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
So someone asked earlier, and I don't know who it was, if I use street curling or floor curl. And I didn't say this earlier because I wanted to get permission from my boss whether I was allowed to say this. I mean, we run the school programs, and obviously this isn't a terrific year to run school programs. It's much more challenging. And our biggest thing is that the gyms are closed in most of Ontario schools. They cannot access them regardless. So we are very close to actually launching the floor curl rocks so that they can be used outdoors. So we're looking to actually be, right now our floor curl rocks can only be used inside in gyms or flat surfaces, but we hope before Christmas we will actually be able to run them outdoors in school parking lots, on school cement pads, wherever they have a concrete surface. We should be able to up and run hopefully by Christmas. So yeah, so we are, our original thought was maybe curling clubs might want it to run something in parking lots if possible, but it's not our intent to market them that way at all. So will you change the casters on them, Abby, or will they be the same casters? No, so the floor curl rocks are on those bearings, and they won't be on bearings. It's actually a special, I don't even know what the material is, plugs that are designed to go in those spots. The bearings will come out, these will kind of just pop in, and then they will work on the concrete surface and allow us to run some of our intro programs and stuff like that. Okay, good to know. All right. One thing to consider is what are the goals of your youth curling program, and I'm thinking this is coming from a perspective of, is it development, is it recruiting, are we trying to grow the sport, but this being an unprecedented year, I think clubs are, I like the idea of the soft start and seeing how things work before bringing new recruits into the program and having to perhaps shut it down for whatever reason. So here's a question. How do you combine competitive youth program with a recreational program with limited ice time for the kids in an overcapacity club? Anybody have any ideas? It's a good question.
Sorry, what was the question?
How do you combine a competitive youth program with a recreational program with limited ice time in an overcapacity club? So the club is already extremely busy. There is no extra ice time. And so they want to get competitive youth out on the ice at the same time as recreational programming. One suggestion here is partner with another club. So put the competitive youth program at one club and the rec program at another. That's a good suggestion. Another suggestion is allowing youth that are high school age to participate in the competitive adult leagues. Let the competitive youth play in the adult leagues. Yeah.
I've also seen the competitive youth joining on coaching. That way they can teach strategy and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I would say that too, is that if you can get the youth to, like, even when I was in the somewhat competitive stage, even just learning of how to teach and learning what you're doing wrong, and then they can pass it on to the kids who are just learning, like, oh, actually, your foot needs to be here up in the hat, and having them learn those things so that they can know what they're doing wrong. They can also help the new curlers kind of correct that.
Okay. I think that provides some suggestions. No room for adults, so no room for kids. Oh, so yeah, it's a dilemma. So partnering with another club might be of benefit.
I actually heard here the other night, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the Timmins Mactar. The arena that's attached to us, they've actually canceled the adult leagues to allow the kids to play, to allow the kids to grow.
Wow.
Yeah, so they actually literally canceled about 3 adult leagues to allow the kids in to play.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, well, that's...
The Dixie Club is, so we have the younger kids play with Little Rocks typically when we're not in COVID-19. And then we keep 1 or 2 sheets for the older Little Rockers that are maybe more competitive or have the ambition of going into juniors and playing more. So that way they're playing with big rocks and they're playing maybe a little more higher competitive than other younger kids in our Little Rock program. So we kind of divide them up a little bit that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's another suggestion here. Maybe this is the year to introduce triples and mixed doubles with those curlers and focus on skill development, which is a thought too. And then the other idea is with, I don't want Kelly to present. Sorry, Kelly. With Kevin's idea of a soft start, so not allowing for this season any new Little Rockers or youth curlers, go with what you had last year, might reduce the numbers a little bit, but you may lose some kids, but you then could do a big push when it's all over to get them back out on the ice. Somebody asked, where are they canceling adult programs to allow kids to play? That was in the arena, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so that's hockey.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Timmins for hockey. We're all in one complex. Timmins. The McIntyre Curling Club in Timmins. In McIntyre, I should say. Sorry. Okay, well, if there are no other questions or comments, suggestions, I think we will wrap it up for the evening. One last call.
Yeah, with our club, what we decided we'd do is we'd have, before the curling actually started, maybe a week or two beforehand, is have the kids come into the club in small groups and do a walkthrough where everything is, where they can and can't go, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do.
Excellent. That's a great idea, an orientation before the league actually starts. That's a super idea. Okay, well, somebody just lost sound, but I think we are almost done anyway. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. Thank you to our presenters and to Lee for providing us with your perspectives, and Lee with the excellent medical information. This recording will come out to you shortly, so please, as I said before, feel free to share it, but please remember that it's for personal and club use only. So thank you very, very much to everybody. Sean did a great job of getting things set up, and then he handed the torch to me to just pull our presenters together, and they did a great job. So thank you all. Be safe, stay well, and